Good morning. Still got a little moon up there. It's just after dawn, actually. I missed sunrise, but I'm here on the beach in, I'm gonna screw it up, Colesbrag. I don't know. Just a beautiful morning here. Gonna get some steps in on the sand. Fortunately, you're getting the dark part of the sky in the background because I'm going this way. And the better view is definitely that way, you can see. But I'm going to enjoy the view and, I'll show you glimpses of it every now and then. So, Colesbrag, it's the north coast of Poland. So, Baltic Sea. Russia's that way behind me, and Estonia, Lithuania, blah blah blah. Finland, Sweden, over there. Denmark, Germany are that way. You're missing my hand pointing. So Finland and Sweden are that way. Denmark and Germany are that way in front of me. And I'm going for a walk on the beach. It's like, what else are you gonna do? So how the hell did I end up here? And what the hell am I doing here? Essentially, I was looking at a map after Christmas going, hey, where can I go now? So I was looking at prices, looking at a map, and it was cheap enough for me to explore the north coast of Poland. Someplace I never thought I'd be. Another place I never thought I'd be. I've been to a lot of places I never thought I'd be this year. And it's only been 6 months. So I left California about 6 months ago. Was determined to get out of California and determined to change my life. I was focused on all these small goals, and it was interesting. Spent New Year's Day or New Year's Eve walking around Krakow with somebody I met, and he really gifted me with a new perspective, because we were talking about decision making and how are people making decisions, and I met him with a group of digital nomads. He's not a technical digital nomad, but he pointed out that it wasn't really all these little decisions I was making. It's like the little decisions were predetermined by the course I set. And when I adjusted that course, I didn't even realize I was adjusting that course in my life. I was looking 5 steps ahead of me, not 10 steps ahead of me, not 20 steps ahead of me, not a month ahead of me. I was looking at the week, at the month, and I fortunately made a course altering decision. And he kind of pointed out that not many people my age sell everything they own and just go on the road. And that was interesting to me because I see a bunch of people on YouTube who've done that, but they've done it a lot more deliberately and a lot more planned than I have. I've thought about this a lot since New Year's. It's only been 2 weeks, but this has been consuming my thought process pretty intensely for the last few weeks. And it really came down to desperation, right? I didn't want to sit in my chair and go to my grave having done nothing in my life after whatever, right? I realized I just wanted to use the time I had left on this planet to get out and see things and do things that I previously deemed beyond my reach. And once I realized things aren't really beyond my reach, it really opened a lot of doors. So how did I do that? Well, I started spending years, wasting years on the internet, with all these self-help guys, all these gurus, Tim Robbins and all those guys. And they're great. Like, if you're up here and you're going up, they're great, right? But when you're having troubles leaving your house every day, or how else can I put this? When you're living at the other end of the spectrum, listening to all these like self-help guys wasn't much help. They're talking about things that still seem beyond reach. And so, I learned a lot about the brain. I learned a lot about neurons. I learned a lot about, this and that. And what really unlocked the door was I got motivated to do something, right? I decided I wanted to go do something, and I was very specific about that. And that was travel, right? I decided, hey, there's a spot on the map right there. I want to go check out that spot. I want to go there, right? What is it going to take for me to get there? Can I afford it? What can I change in my life to get there? And so I started cutting out, you hear this all the time, but how many people do it, right? I was a twice a day drive-through coffee guy. Cut that shit out. I was spending obscene amounts of money every month on hobbies that didn't really give anything back to me, provide any value. They were just time killers, right? So I looked at everything I was doing, and am I spending money on this just to kill time, or is it providing value to my life? And some of those things were providing a little bit of value because they get me out of the house, but they weren't really progressing me forward either, right? So cut all those, cut my spending, cut my eating habits dramatically, cut my eating budget dramatically, not so much my habits. That came later. And, lo and behold, I had the money to go on a trip. So, I found myself in the Philippines, and I went down there for, I think it was a week or 2 weeks the first time. I think it was a week. I just wanted to see if I could get there and get back. I mean, the social struggles I was having at the time were pretty intense. Like, I was literally have days where I couldn't leave the house. I'd get stressed out. So, I developed a series of countermeasures. So when I was on the plane and I was stressed out and frustrated and angry, I had an activity to keep me busy, diffuse that frustration, and refocus on my goals. And having that goal of travel really helped me focus on my budget and fight the urge to go get a bottle of whiskey in the middle of the night, fight the urge to, hit Taco Bell at 3 a.m., whatever it was, right? I mean, there's all these little things that just dip into your wallet and rob you of an experience. And, after my second trip to the Philippines, it became real easy to focus, because my first trip, I just literally got there, bounced around a few days and then got home. My second trip, I actually went out, did some island hopping, and that was really the groundbreaking trip. And I did it let me count the months. Let's see, I did it 4 months after my first trip, so I refined my budget down to where I could afford that round trip ticket and lodging and everything, and still pay all my bills. And that took effort and that took work. But after that second trip, it was real easy, because every time I'd go to a coffee shop, I'd be like, I can get this cup of coffee here, or I can save that money and get a coconut full of rum on the beach in the Philippines. That really changed my life. And then, I was actually in the Philippines in February 2020 when COVID started hitting, and I almost got caught up in it in Korea on the way home. Had no idea what was happening, but it hurt my knee, so I couldn't get in to see the doctor. So I just sank back into that depression, and when you're sitting in a chair all day, every day, everything plummets. So finally, got some physical therapy about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and got to where I could walk, not far, but I could walk, and just said, okay, it's time to punch out, because if I would have stayed where I was at in California, I may still be alive, but I would be on that path to, sitting in my chair, doing nothing, and, being angry, being upset. I mean, look where I'm at. This, it's a cold winter day, but this is gorgeous. It might start raining in an hour. It's kind of like the Azores here in the summertime. The Azores, it's like you leave the house, you got to carry something for rain, because it's either going to rain for 5 minutes or 30 minutes, and you got to be ready for it. And it'll come in, rain, and be gone. So I got my backpack with my raincoat just in case, because that's been my experience here. I've only been here a week, but I think this is the second time I've seen blue sky, so it pays to get up early. So that's kind of my story. And since I sold everything, hit the road, I spent a couple months in the Azores, spent 4 months in Albania, and that brings me up to December. December I kind of spent in a bunch of places. December I didn't stay in any one place for more than like 5 or 6 days. Now we're into January. I think this is my 3rd city since New Year's. I've got 3 more planned for the rest of the month. And then February I'm going to calm back down again and lay low and refocus on some things and make some long-term plans. But the interesting thing to me is, since I've left California, my bankroll or bank accounts have gone up and down. I was doing really good at first. I kind of got into too much vacation mode, forgetting that I'm not on permanent vacation. And so now my bank accounts are going back up again. My health is just, skyrocketed. I'm way healthier than I was, probably the last 2 years. So like this coat, when I left California, I couldn't zip it up. Like I'd wear it open. And now I've got plenty of room under it. When it's really cold, I wear another coat under it that, I used to zip up, but, it was snug all the way around. And now there's room in it. I can put this over it and zip it up. And that gets a little snug, like 2 t-shirts, a fleece, and this gets snug. But I haven't been tracking my weight, but the real important thing for me is I can walk. I can spend 2 to 3 hours on my feet and not be dead. And I was getting to that point before I hurt my knee. So it's nice to get back to that. It's nice to increase that mobility. And that just, increases my chances of living longer, which is the goal, right? But what I've also done, and this is kind of one of the reasons I'm posting videos on YouTube, is to show people that, hey, I'm not the smart, rich guy, right? I'm on a fixed income and it's low by American standards. And if I can do this, if I can sort this out, if you're just sitting in your chair at home or, waddling up to the coffee shop every day like I was, I hope you watch this video and start thinking, hey, I would like to do this or do that or go here or go there, and realize that, it's feasible. And, if you can put aside $200 or $300 a month, you can take a fabulous trip every year. And what does it take for you to carve that out of your budget? Now with inflation, it's going to be crazy, right? But there's still, room to empower yourself. And if you're a little more courageous, you can take your, if you're on a fixed income or Social Security or whatever, there's lots of people who talk about this. You can move abroad and save money. You know, I'm here to tell you the $200 rent seems like a myth. A lot of people said, oh, you can rent for $200 or $300 here and there. And there are places where you can get cheap rents, but you really have to be a local. So if you're gonna move someplace and want a cheap rent, you need to plan on that first 2 to 4 months being significantly more expensive, right? And then find the place to move into. And there's a lot of other things I would do before I just jumped off the shores of America and landed somewhere. If you've never traveled or never been anywhere. I made 5 trips to the Philippines before I was ready to jump ship and go there, and then COVID happened. So, that's me. I'm a little slow. I make a lot of mistakes. We'll talk about some of those here. But it's hard for me not to jump up and down and say, fuck you, I'm not dead yet. And I'm sorry for swearing, but I can't really express in words like how happy I am. And I haven't been this happy in years. Even when I was going to the Philippines, there were some amazing things, but I still had that anchor around my neck that was California. I still felt obligated to help people there. I still felt obligated to, try and make the system better, to try and, restore California to what it could be. And I realized, most people in California, they just, not trying to belittle anybody here or anything, but, they're happy in the pig pen. They're happy dealing with the crime, dealing with the mess. And, eventually, hopefully, enough people will stop being happy with it and they'll actually, stand up and do something. But I don't see that coming anytime soon. And so I had to go. It was to a point where I didn't feel comfortable leaving my house and going for a walk every day because there was always something that was going to be nagging at me, whether it was a crackhead, whether it was a naked guy running down the street at 10 in the morning. I was at 2nd and Main Street like 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And a guy pulled out a screwdriver and wanted to stab me. Took up a fighting stance like he was in prison, holding it like a shank. And he's, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I don't need that shit in my life. It's funny to me. I've been to, Triana, Albania. Everybody says, don't go to Albania. It's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. Triana, Albania is probably the safest city I've lived in outside of a military base. Like, even some military bases, I didn't feel that safe. But, I could walk through that city in the middle of the night with zero concern for safety. And, maybe I'll do a video about going to get pizza one night because it was funny. But my point is all these myths and lies that people propagate, they're false. They're just flat out false. And when you leave a place like California and you come to a place like Albania or Portugal, you go, wow, why was I paying so much to live there? It was so funny to me. I got to Portugal, the Azores. I was gonna buy a coffee maker and coffee and all that. I'm a very big coffee fan. Need it daily. And I'm up at the store, and most places when you leave America they don't drink coffee. It's espresso, right? So I'm up at the little 300 meters from my front door. There's a little market, and then down the thing there's a little like bar, coffee shop, pastries. And I'm in there, and an espresso was like 60 cents euro, so it was like 80 cents US. It was cheaper for me to buy espresso than it was to make it at home. And easier, right? It tasted better because he had the real machine. So You know, and Albania was even worse. Albania, you know, espresso was about the same price, but it was better tasting. And I can't even count how many coffee shops were within, you know, 500 meters of the apartment I was in. I mean, it was about 100 meters down to the corner, and then right and left, you know, there's a coffee shop every 30 meters, every 20 meters. And then there were some tucked back in around the corner and over here and over there. And so, you know, zero reason to make coffee at home when it's that cheap. You know, what I'm trying to get to is, you know, life in America is very expensive. This city here, you know, it's pretty expensive here. Like an espresso here is about $4 US, $4 to $5 US. So that's pricey, right? I'm making coffee in the apartment I rented here, but the apartment I'm renting goes for, on Airbnb, I think it lists, I'm only in it a few days, but I think it lists out at like $575 a month, and then Airbnb adds their $100 on that. So still, I mean, you're looking under $700 a month for an apartment, you know, 500 meters from the beach. When I left California, my rent without utilities was $900 a month, and it was going up. So you do the math. And that was probably the cheapest one bedroom in California. Not in California, but the city I lived in, that was on the bottom end of that scale. See if that, there we go, how's that? So anyway, I just, you know, I can't get over this. I've learned a lot on the road. Probably the biggest thing I've learned is YouTube is harder than I thought. You know, I had this envision that I'd pump out some YouTube videos. I've been thinking about this since my last trip to the Philippines in 2019. And it's a lot harder than I thought, so I never really bought into it as much. I want to post a couple videos, I hope, this week that will kind of show you what I'm talking about. But, you know, my whole thought of posting videos back then and posting videos now is to show people how easy it was. Because even when pre-pandemic I was going to the Philippines, it stunned me once I started going and I started learning how to book and where to go and what to do, how affordable it was. You know, I was finding round trip tickets, you know, under $800 every time. And, you know, accommodations in the Philippines are anywhere from $10 a night to, you know, $400. It's just a matter of what you want, where you're going, and, you know, and you can hit that mark anywhere in between. And food has the same thing. Like, I ate a couple meals there with some locals for like $2, full meals. You know, and I had sushi for, I think, 4 of us at sushi was about 130, 140. So you get the whole spectrum of whatever you want to pay, right? But it's doable. And I never understood how reachable some of these goals are. I mean, this year, you know, I found myself swimming off the Italian coast. If you asked anybody who knew me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if they ever thought I'd make it to Italy and go swimming, they'd all laugh at you. But there's a little video I did of me in a cave there. You know, and it's just mind-blowing to me that, you know, the bucket list on a budget is a reality. The bucket list on a budget is doable. And the only thing really that was stopping me was my mind, right? Was the belief that, you know, it was beyond my reach, that it's beyond my capabilities. Once I learned to change some habits, change some thought processes, and, you know, get focused on a specific goal, everything fell into line. So, again, part of these videos show people that it can be done, and then, break down some of the specifics. The thing that really kind of bothered me about the Philippines is you get down there and like a lot of the things that were easy after you did it 2 or 3 times were nearly impossible to sort out before you got there. So, I'd be talking to some people, like there's a popular destination called El Nido. And to get to El Nido, most people fly to Manila. They'll either spend the night or have a risky flight over to Puerto Princesa, and then they'll ride the bus or a van. It's like 6 or 8 hours at the time or more up to El Nido. And it just wastes a whole lot of time. It's like, how many hours do you want to fly to sit in a cramped van, with your knees stuck against the seat in front of you, all day? Like, that is the absolute last thing I want to do, spend all day in a van with my knees crammed against the seat. And so there's better ways around that, but to explain to people the 4 or 5 other routes I found took forever, where I had a video of it. I just say, hey, go watch this video. And so that was a lot of my motivation. And things like money and credit cards, how to exchange money, is it better to use a card or cash, and when to use card or cash, and how to do it safely. Just another quick ad lib here. I was at a bar, and they had a bikini contest or something going on. And so I'm talking with this other guy, and he's like, oh yeah, I need to go change some money. And I'm like, yeah, I should probably change some money as well. And I look at the rate on the wall at the hotel. I'm like, okay, well, the hotel, they don't change the rate every day, so they just go with one that's safe for them, and they make a little money on the side because it costs them money to exchange. And I'm looking at my phone, looking at the exchange rate, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just do it here. I don't want to mess with getting a ride. He's trying to get me to jump in a little trike with him, and I'm like, I have a hard time fitting in those trikes by myself. And, he was wanting both of us to go take a trike, 30 minutes, 20 minutes across town to this place where you get a better rate. So he goes down there, gets a better rate, comes back probably 40 minutes later, missed the beginning of the show, and we're comparing notes on our exchanges, and basically he saved enough, or made him enough money to buy a beer, is what it worked out to. By the time he spent money on the trike and blah blah blah, the trike there and back, he basically saved enough money to buy a beer. So it was a beer worth an hour of your time. How many hours are you on vacation? And these are all things like, it really confused me watching other people on vacations. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting all this time? You're on vacation for 2 weeks a year, and you're wasting all this time. And then, things like booking Airbnbs. Like, I gotta tell you, I feel like an Airbnb expert after Budapest. I think I stayed in 4 or 5 places in Budapest, and it was a real learning experience. I got the really good and the really bad in Budapest, and even had to call Airbnb a few times and say, hey, no way, no how am I paying for this? And they sorted it out after a bit, but that they didn't. There's never a give back, right? So I basically had to burn 2 days, on this bad Airbnb, because I had to grab my stuff and move out, deal with them online, rebook, find another place to stay, and all this headache and BS in the middle of my vacation. And, that's basically 2 days of a vacation lost. Now, fortunately, I'm not on a schedule. I don't have to go home. Well, because I don't have a home, right? But, had I been on vacation, I would have been really, really upset about that, because, you know, think about that. If you're on vacation for 2 weeks and you lose a day and a half or 2 days screwing around with an Airbnb, or, you know, at one point the guy wanted me to wait for the plumber, and I'm like, one, fortunately I know the plumber wasn't going to be able to fix it in a day, and two, like, this is your Airbnb, this is your problem. I'm not here to solve your problems, right? So a lot of lessons learned with Airbnb, booking flights, you know, how to find places to stay. Got all these lessons learned that, you know, might be useful to you if you decide to come out here. So I'll be dropping those in there. I am gonna knuckle down on this. You know, I feel like I've got the thick skin now. You know, I shot a lot of video in the last 6 months that I just never posted because it never made it through the editing process. I was saying I learned that Airbnb or YouTube is really hard. You know, I watched a video where these travelers, they put out these great videos, great footage, but they spend like 3 or 4 days a week doing nothing but working on that video, out shooting specific locations, editing, you know, thumbnails and this and that. And I'm not gonna do that. You know, I'm gonna put out I did shoot a video or footage of Budapest of what my average day looks like. And so that will kind of explain what, you know, my temperament for YouTube. But it's also, you know, I have no will or desire to compete with those people. You know, they do great work. They highlight all the great shit. I'm not going to all the great tourist shit, right? I'm on a budget. I'm living small. I do go get nice food every once in a while. I do go do an excursion every once in a while. But for me, you know, the real joy is just walking around the city, walking to beaches, meeting people, you know, and, you know, it's like a constant adventure. Every time I leave the house, it's a new adventure. Tirana was great because Tirana is just this amazing city. It's got all this history, and, you know, I could leave the house, go for a walk, and see something new or different or interesting every day. You know, Azores was not that, but it was equally as good, because every time I left the house, I mean, I was on an island in the middle of the Atlantic, right? It's like everywhere you go, it's like, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that. You know, it brings back that childlike fever. And Poland has been another interesting thing. The people aren't nearly as friendly as Albania, but they are definitely very friendly. You know, some are give you the dirty looks, but by and large, you know, the people I've met here are very friendly. So, you know, that's me. I'm not out doing all these excursions. I'm not out trying to be a superstar. You know, if you're struggling to get out of your chair or find your groove or find your passion, you know, maybe I can help with that. Maybe you can see that this dumb guy is, you know, walking the beach on the Baltic coast, turning out to be a beautiful morning. And, you know, my sincere hope is that you go, if that dumbass can do it, why can't I? And it may not be travel for you. It may not be this. It may not be that. You know, maybe you want to build a log cabin. Maybe you want to do X, Y, Z. You know, maybe you just want to get in shape. You know, if I can change my life at 50 plus, I think anybody can. It's just a matter of if you want to or not. And once you decide you want to, then it gets hard. Then it's a matter of how, right? And that's where I stumbled for a long time, the how. And you know, sometime in the near future, I'll dive into what I did that really was effective. You know, it's really funny. You know, the things I expected to be hard were easy. Giving up booze was easy. You know, I still drink, but, you know, I went from pouring a glass at nearly every day at 10 a.m., you know, noon time to, you know, I'll drink once a week, maybe on average, maybe, if that. And it'll be like 1 or 2 glasses, maybe, if that. You know, so those things were easy. You know, the hard things were the courage to step out the door, courage to get on the plane, the courage to believe that, you know, this is a reality that can happen. I mean, check out this lighthouse. You know, I mean, I can't, I wish I could impart on you the feeling I have today. It's just, you know, I'm on the other side of the planet and I've got the freedom to go and do whatever I want. And, you know, I mean, how the fuck did I get here, right? I mean, that's the real question. How the hell did I get here? You know, and I still think about it, and it kind of befuddles me. But at the same time, I suck it in and, you know, count my blessings. So where do you want to go? What's on your agenda? What's your mountain you want to climb? And what are you willing to do to get there? Talk to you soon.